Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, and welcome to this episode of Capping the Card, focused on the Haskell Day card at Monmouth Park. It's a 14 race card, a massive card. We're going to start in race number 5 and work our way through. But before we do that, make sure to press that like button on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the new NYRA Bets YouTube channel for all of our great content, whether it's episodes like this where we're giving you full card analysis or race previews. We have a couple of those up right now. Richie Migliori and I talked about the Coaching Club of American Oaks. Crystal Conning, the paddock analyst at Monmouth Park, and she discussed the first look at the Haskell Stakes. So a lot of great stuff there, in addition to our evergreen content on handicapping 101, betting 101, a lot of helpful tutorials for you to get started and feel more comfortable playing the game. Well, this week we are focused on the Haskell presented by NYRA Bets. And in order to properly go through the Haskell Day card, I needed to bring on the voice of Monmouth Park, and that is Matt Dinerman. Matt, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about a really fun, exciting Haskell Day card.
Matthew, good to be on with you. Yes, we're really excited here in Oceanport. 14 races, first post noon Eastern time. Of course, the Haskell, the NYRA Bets Haskell, our new title sponsor. We will have the NYRA Bets Haskell with a post time of about 5:45 p.m. Eastern time. And it's going to be a great day. We've got 6 stakes overall, 4 graded stakes. We've got a couple of guaranteed pools later on in the program. So not just the NYRA Bets Haskell, but all the way through, big fields, good quality, and good betting opportunities.
Absolutely. Plenty of races with very full fields and lots of different options. And you and I went in a few different directions in several of these races. So it's going to be a lot of fun to talk through all of that. But we're going to start in race 5 and go through the end of the card 14. But there are 4 races that kind of start off the card a little bit of a local flavor. There's a New Jersey bred race in there as well. I was wondering, Matt, you had a chance to look over this entire card. Is there 1 or 2 horses in those first 4 races you wanted to kind of give a quick shout to?
Well, in the opener, that kicks off the win early pick 5 here. We're expected to have at least $300,000 in that pool. It's a very popular wager here at Monmouth, and I actually took the rail horse. I see you looking there with Jose Ortiz, who's in town to ride. Greg Sacco has the training duties now, actually taking the training duties over from trainer Todd Pletcher. And this horse has always wanted to go long on the turf. It appears his best races come going long on the turf. A high-priced yearling purchase. Things haven't worked out for him. He's in for a tag. But I think I see you looking in race number 1 right away. I think he's going to be very live in there. I like Atomic Tone in race 2, which begins the early pick 4 races 2 through 5. I think the ex-Baffert horses, Kamui, and there's another one in here as well, Wickline. I think both of them are going to get play, but I would rather use Atomic Tone on top there. And I think the rest of the next few races there, just pretty competitive, I would say. And you can go a number of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great for people who are kicking off that early pick 5 and some options there. And let's dive into the final race in that early pick 5, and that is the Matchmaker, which is a grade 3 for 3-year-old nut filly and mares going a mile and an eighth on the turf. And I'll be honest, Matt, this was a tough race. This was a race I felt like you could go in any number of directions. You and I went with 4 different horses for all of our ideas here. And I'll be honest, I'm glad you picked the 2 horses you did, because I was looking closely at them as well. But why don't you kick things off as the guest and talk a little bit about your top pick, surprisingly?
This is very much how this race appears on paper. Just a wide open race. Papilio, 12-1 on the morning line, the longest shot on the morning line, has a really good chance to win. I mean, this race can go any one of the 7 ways that you look at it. 7 fillies and mares going a mile and an eighth on the turf. I like surprisingly in this race, as the graphic indicates. And last time out, this gal, I think, just a little bit outclassed in the Grade 1 New York. So the class drop is going to help. That 2-back effort, she disappointed at this distance. But the key with that was she was racing over a yielding surface. I don't think she cared for that surface at all, so I just crossed the race out. You're left with a really good second place finish in the Orchard in the Grade 3 in March, and then in January, she actually ran second in the Pegasus. for the fillies and mares on the grass. So her best race puts her in the hunt here. I think she's tactical too. I think this race is going to be one of these races where the runners that get the best trips, because they're so evenly matched, if they're ready to run, whoever gets the best trip is going to win. I think she can make herself a good trip. Unlike a couple of others that I think sort of need certain scenarios to be successful, I think she's very versatile. So I think there are a lot of reasons to like, surprisingly, with Irad Ortiz riding for Todd Fletcher here. And then my value play is Sacred Wish, who is very much a trip play. I think she should have won the Eatontown last time out at grade 3 here at Monmouth. She got boxed in behind horses, had nowhere to go. It's just a really rough trip for her, and she was loaded. So I think if you watch that trip alone, you're going to start to second guess if you originally don't have her on your tickets, because she had a disastrous trip that day. And just one more quick note, Maman June, if she gets some pace, she's very interesting to me. She'd be the other Chad Brown in the race, but I think it's very interesting if she can get some pace. I don't know if she's going to get it, but she has a really nice closing kick. So wide open race.
Yeah, very much. And I agree with you about Sacred Wish in particular. I was there that day because that was the Haskell preview day. And I was actually a little surprised Kendrick didn't go right to the front. And I think that this horse has a chance maybe on Saturday to go straight to the lead. And I think that's maybe where she's going to do her best work and just be forward and keep herself out of that trouble that you mentioned coming for home. So definitely a live shot there. I ultimately went to one of the Chad Brown entries in here, the number 1 Delahaye at 7-2 on the morning line. Jockey Flavian Pratt up on the mount. I don't know if anybody's riding better right now in the country than Flavian, who is just absolutely tearing up the Saratoga meet and doing such a great job up here riding on the turf for Chad and other trainers. This is a horse that's, again, pretty versatile. I mean, you mentioned for that versatility, this is a horse that's wired the field before, but also come from well off the pace. Came up a little short, 2 back against a horse like Chili Flag, who we saw go on to be a grade 1 winner, then got back on the right track, a winning over yielding turf course down at Churchill Downs. I just like that ground saving trip on the inside and having Pratt up on the mount. But I think, like you, this could go any number of directions. And then Papilio, yeah, this is a horse I've always liked. And for Mark Casse, who, by the way, has been turning out some winners up here at Saratoga early on in this meet. And this is one I used to joke, if she could just learn how to run in a straight line, she'd be dangerous. She's a filly that can be a little all over the place in the stretch, but man, she really does have a lot of talent. Third back in the form cycle, finally got back to winning last time, which is something she hasn't done since that grade 2 Appalachian as a 2-year-old. And I just think, maybe is able to take another step forward and remembers what winning is like and gets Jose Ortiz up on the mount, but could go a lot of different directions here in race 5. So let's move along to race number 6 on the card. And this one, you and I are in lockstep, and this might be the single of the day. I think for a lot of people in the Molly Pitcher, grade 3 for 3-year-old up filly and mares, going a mile and a 16th on the dirt. It's hard for me to make a case against Idiomatic in this spot. She is just the class of the field. Also has a significant pace advantage as well, and should be able to get up on the front and dictate terms on her own for jockey Florent Giroux, and of course trained by Brad Cox, coming up just short last time out in the Ogden Phipps, but is your reigning Breeders' Cup Distaff winner. And again, just looks really tough in this spot. And especially considering that a horse like Just Catherine, who I thought was maybe a little bit interesting, as well as Misty Vale, are both cross-entered to run in the Chuvy on Sunday at Saratoga. So we have to kind of wait and see how that plays out. And as a result, I thought a horse like Kathleen O, a horse that I always loved going back to her 3-year-old season down at Gulfstream Park for Sugar McGahee, who finally got back to her winning ways last time out at Monmouth Park, is going to need to take a step forward in terms of speed figures. That goes without saying. But I think a 10-1 on the inside rail, maybe she doesn't have that burst like she used to. She used to be a real push-button horse. But, I think she can still kind of grind away a little bit there, maybe get a piece. And maybe something like a 6-1 exacta is something you could play in this race. But I see you had a hard time getting past the favorite in this one, too.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, she's the class of the race by many lengths. She is the controlling speed. I saw her this morning. She is a tank. I don't know if I've ever saw her in person before. I mean, she is just so athletic and so strong. And has a really good mind too, a very sweet mare in the barn. But I just don't think anybody's fast enough to go with her. And yeah, if you single this mare and she wins, you're not going out on a limb. A lot of other people are moving along as well. But sometimes the best horse just wins, and I think something unforeseen would have to happen for her to lose this race. Obviously, she doesn't need the lead, but I think Florent Giroux, he's got the much best mare in here, so he's just going to get her out of the gate, get her to the lead, and coast around there. And I agree with Kathleen O. I mean, she obviously was a pretty nice runner as a 3-year-old filly, maybe in the Kentucky Oaks picture back in 2022. It hasn't really been the same. Sometimes horses with some class, they finally get a win off a bunch of losses and they get confident. I don't think she's going to be close as fast enough to beat Idiomatic, but she might be able to round out an exacta at what could be an okay price.
Yeah, absolutely. And so going to be a fun field. And you're right about Idiomatic. She is huge. I mean, I don't think people who've ever, if you haven't seen her in person before, you don't fully appreciate it. It's a little bit of, I'm going to use a throwback horse here. It's a little bit of a rock hard 10 situation. She just kind of walks in to the starting gate. She just looks bigger than everybody else. And that was very adamant. And actually last time out when in the Ogden Phipps, where randomized to beat her, it looked like a miniature horse compared to her running down the lane. So it's really something to see Idiomatic run. And she just, all the distance you want to give her, she's going to love it. But and then we go into some allowance and optional claiming races. And this is another competitive race. I think you could look in a lot of different directions for $50,000 allowance for a 3-year-old nut filly and mares going a mile on the turf. Ultimately, you and I landed on the same top choice, the number 7, Cecile, I should say, at 9-2. What drew you to this one, and what made you pick this one as your top selection?
It's funny because when I first look at Cecile, I did my first little rundown, and just going through, you sort of just scan through and you look, maybe she's not as good this year as she was last year. That's your first reaction, just looking on the page. Yep. So then you sort of dive into her form and you realize last year she was stakes placed, almost won a stake, took a bunch of time off, comes back, first start off the layoff, is a bad trip, was wide turning for home, I think was too far back, was put on hold when she didn't need to. I just thought it was not a good trip for her, to put it nicely. And then last time out, she showed a lot more speed, was let run. And I don't think she would have won that day, but she would have been closer. She got boxed in behind horses, had to steady, was in a pocket, and lost a lot of momentum. Third start off the layoff for Lindsay Schultz. I think that Cecile is going to run well. Adding blinkers is a bullet workout, since the added blinkers note has been given to us here for this race. And I think that she's going to run back third start off the layoff to her very best race. And if she can, and she can get a good trip, I think she can win.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I looked at it much the same way. Third start in the form cycle, getting the blinkers added. I thought all of those things were real positives. And I agree with you. The last 2 trips were not necessarily what you wanted to see in terms of, being too far back, and then last time out having a little bit of trouble. And I also noted that local bullet work on July 13th. So definitely looking very live in this particular spot. And I'd rather go with her at 9-2 over a horse like Lady Madonna at 7-2, who's kind of run at this level at Monmouth and just not gotten the job done. So I'd rather use a horse coming in from Churchill in that regard, and who maybe has a little bit more back class, to your point about being stakes placed last year, and a little bit of a better price. My value play in this one was the number 6, Coco Crush. And Brendan Walsh is just a trainer that I tend to trust a lot in these spots. Obviously, Flavian Pratt up on the mount as well. This is one who was in the Joseph O'Brien barn over in England and over in the United Kingdom before coming over here to the United States, broke her maiden in debut at Keeneland, and then stepped up and had a kind of another not a great trip, was kind of a little further back than I thought, and then really had to fan out wide. Lost some momentum, I think, by doing that with Tyler Gaffalione aboard that day. Brendan's not one to place horses irresponsibly. He tends to try to spot his horses well. if this one, he could have easily probably found a spot at Ellis Park for this one, or maybe even up at Saratoga. The fact he brought her here, I think, speaks to what he thinks, is the level of this horse, and has been working well down at Turfway Park, where Brendan trains a lot of his horses. So I had 8-1. I thought a little bit of an interesting play, maybe more of an underneath shot. You have a little bit of a bigger price as your value play here, Lady Doro. Talk to me a little bit about this one.
Well, this filly facing older here, so that's a little bit of a knock. But 2 starts ago, she went off at even money at this level sprinting. Ran very well. She ran second, and she didn't have the greatest trip either. She didn't break all that great. Has some issues, some traffic problems, notably down the backstretch and around the far turn, and still ran second. I thought it was a much better than looked effort. And then last time out against a good field, she just sort of got out kicked a little bit. And trainer Michael Pino, very, very good with runners sprinting around, winning at almost 19% the last year. And I just wonder if maybe this filly does want a little more distance, given the fact that she was out kicked. Sometimes we see these horses in sprints, they get out kicked, and then they go a little bit longer. It's a little bit better for them. This filly's by Catholic Boy out of a Medaglia de Oro mare, and that dam, her wins came routing, and 2 siblings could go 2 turns as well, albeit one of them actually wanted 2 turns at Charlestown. But nonetheless, they could go 2 turns. And I just wonder if maybe this gal here can enjoy the route game. So she's going to be my value play at 10-1 with Sammy Camacho, who started off the meet a little bit slower. And now he's starting to ride really well and picking up steam here. I also want to note with Lady Madonna, I know you mentioned her. Just for folks that haven't seen her, she's a real big scopy mare. And that's probably part of the reason why she was purchased for $675,000. A beautiful daughter of Warfront, but she's sort of a grindy type. She didn't get the greatest trip last time. She moved early, was really wide on the far turn, turning to home, and that cost her. But she's one that has sort of that grinding tendency, and I feel she's beatable for that reason. I just wonder if maybe others can outkick her here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good local note to give. Having seen her run before, and certainly you're right. The price tag tells you that there's at least the thought of some expectations for this one, for sure. Well, let's move on to race number 8, which is a $20,000 optional claimer for 3-year-old and up. It's going 1.70 miles on the dirt. And this one, I ultimately went to the number 8, Dilger. Coming out of the Lexington Stakes, actually was very aggressively placed by Safi Joseph Jr. And coming out of a maiden win down at Gulfstream Park, stepped up and actually ran third that day. I kind of forgot that horse even ran third in the Lexington behind Encino and the Wine Steward. Granted, it was a distant third by 9 lengths, but horse has not been seen since then, but has been, working out locally at Monmouth Park and turning in a lot of really strong efforts, a lot of strong bullets. And I just, 7-2, a little bit of an interesting price with Jose Ortiz aboard. That's ultimately where I went with my top selection. But you went with a horse that I've always been a huge fan of and runs up here in New York quite a bit. Always like this number 2, Colloquy. So what this one?
Well, I looked at this runner's 2-turn races. He's been running a lot going 1-turn miles, but all of his 2-turn races, his speed figures have been very good. He has run some really dynamite races going 2 turns. And second off the claim for Rob Actress, I think this runner will be ready to go. The high percentage Rob Actress barn should get a good stocking trip with our leading rider here, Paco Lopez, who obviously is no stranger of the Monmouth Park Winner's Circle. So I think Colloquy in this race is really an interesting contender for that reason alone. And I think there's some pace for him to get a good trip just off of it. And I think the 2 turns is really going to be the key for him because if he runs his best 2-turn race, he is definitely fast enough to beat this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you have your long shot play here, number 6, Ballantine, 10-1 on the morning line. Talk to me a little bit more about this one.
Well, this is a very sort of uncharacteristic move here to win a 12-5 claimer and then to go into an allowance race. And it's also uncharacteristic to pick a horse like this. But he's 10-1 on the morning line, and this horse 2 starts to go. He should have won that day. He broke very poorly, was too far behind, off a fast pace. So he had a chance to run into it, and he ran second. But I think he was the best horse that day. And then he came back and was off the speed, made this middle race move, and easily passed his rivals. Was clear by 3 turning for home and won by 11 lengths, and could have won probably by 10 more if he wanted to. It's actually the same type of deal as Festinate, your value play. Both horses facing much easier, winning in hand by open lengths. And I wonder if Valentine is just a horse that's going into good form right now. And he's wheeling back quickly, but the way he ran, it didn't look like it took much out of him the way he was finishing. I mean, he could have gone faster, and the speed figure is good enough to compete at this level. So at 10-1, I figure might as well take a shot. He's not going to have things nearly as easily. One knock is that with horses, you see them turning for home if they have a clear and comfortable lead, they keep going. And other times when they don't, turning for home, they're a different horse. And he will not have a 3-length lead turning for home as he did last time out. But I figure at 10-1, it's at least exactly what you noted as here, a value play. Maybe a horse that's going in the right direction. If he can run back to that and run as fast as that, if not a little bit faster, because he could have run faster last time, then maybe he's worth a look.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I are on the same wavelength in terms of where we went for our value plays. You said it, very similar MOs for both of these runners. Festinate, my top play, almost the exact same story, claiming 7,500 last time out and just won for fun by 11 and a half lengths. Claimed by Jose Hernandez, 50% off the claim over the last year. Isaac Castillo just kind of sends, I'd imagine, in this spot and just tries to get up there and try to get clear of the field a little bit. And, we'll see what ends up happening, but, might end up getting past late, might tire a little bit late, but I think worth a shot, certainly at that price on the morning line. So we'll have to wait and see, but let's kick on to the next race and we get into our stakes action. And this is race number 9, the Wolf Hill Stakes for 3-year-old on going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. We both have the same top selection. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, a lot of this for me was shaded by A, my opinion of Cogburn, and B, just how good Star of Mystery, who finished third that day behind our top picks, Arzak, looked when she just ran last weekend at Saratoga. And to me, it felt like Arzak just was the class of the field.
It sure looks like it. And if you get 5-2 on Arzak, that's going to be a gift. For sure. He is a very nice horse, obviously going better than ever. And you look at who he ran against, and it was really flattering to see that third place finisher, Star of Mystery, run the way she did recently. So Arzak's the pick. He's a bit of a mid-pack closer type, but it looks like there's some pace in here with That's Right and Nothing Better, both in the race. So with that in mind, he's going to get a pace in here. That's Right was a supplemental entrant. We've seen a lot of supplemental stakes horses scratching out of races. So if for some reason That's Right scratches, it will greatly, in my opinion, change the pace scenario. But we're hoping he stays in. If he does, there's going to be a lot more speed in the race, and it's going to set up really well for Arzak, who, of course, won the Shakertown 2 starts ago at Keeneland. It's a grade 2. So that last run wasn't a fluke because he is a grade 2 winner at Keeneland, and that is not an easy thing to do, to be a graded stakes winner over there. So he is a very good horse, and Irad Ortiz is riding him too, Irad Ortiz Jr., so that only adds to the appeal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. He's a horse that has a little bit more speed when he needs to show it. If you look at that, Shakertown sat 4th in the early going. So, can get up in that more of a tracking trip and not be too far off in case the pace may not develop the way that it might look on paper right now. And I'll be honest, Irad Ortiz Jr., for as gifted of a rider as he is, and he is one of the best in the country, I always like him more on horses like this than on horses that are speed horses. I always like Irad on a tracking trip, a mid-pack trip. I just feel like he knows how to get horses settled in the right position, and then he knows how to make that move coming for home, as opposed to sometimes I feel like he maybe doesn't always have the best internal timer when he's on the lead and maybe goes a little too fast occasionally at times when he has a front runner. So I think this horse fits him like a glove, and I just love this combination here. You went to a little bit of a price here with your value playing a horse that has some versatility between the turf and the synthetic with Let My People Go at 10-1, but certainly has some good form to run back to.
He sure does, and he got a confidence booster. We mentioned earlier horses that have a lot of runs under their belt, experience. They start losing. They know what winning and losing is. They lose confidence. Then they get a win, and it sort of props them up. Even though this horse, yes, he won on synthetic last time out, and he's 2 for 4 on synthetic surfaces, so we know he really likes synthetic. Not that he can't run well on the turf either, because this horse was second to one timer, getting a 101 Beyer speed figure back in August of last year at Ellis Park. And with that in mind, that tells you this horse has the turf speed and the ability to run really well in these turf sprints. And Vicky Oliver gets Frankie Dettori aboard. And this horse is one. He's versatile. He's a little bit like Arzak in the sense that he's not really a front runner, but he can show speed if he needs to. So I think Let My People Go is intriguing at the price he's at on the morning line, 10-1.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you about that. And that was one I was looking at closely in that spot. And where I went for my value play was another horse coming out of that Jaipur, but was much further back, obviously, and that's Allegan for Edward Allard. Abner Adorno is going to be up on the mount on Saturday. And this is one, again, you look, this is a horse that kind of excels in these listed stakes level races, won this race, of course, last year at Monmouth Park, and is stakes placed in a few other spots up here in New York, running in the Elusive Quality and some other races. So just as one I would probably use more underneath. But again, I just based upon my opinion of Cogburn, how good Star of a Mystery looked, I just figured I'd take some horses coming out of that Jaipur 6-1. I wouldn't be surprised if that number floats up a little bit, just because, as you alluded to, I think Arzak's price is going to go down, and that's going to kind of let everybody else float up a little bit in terms of what their prices might be come post time. But very fun race, and should those 5.5 furlong sprints are always a lot of fun to watch because you never know what's going to happen, and sometimes as soon as the gates open, the complexion of the entire race changes. So it should be a lot of fun. Well, let's move on to race number 10 on the card, the Monmouth Cup Grade 3 for 3-year-old going 1.1 miles on the dirt. And we both landed on the same top choice, but that also meant that we both faded big name that's making his debut in 2024 and coming off the bench. And that is, of course, Tapit Trice, who so many people remember from last year's Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Derby Trail, and then running in the Travers, and he has not been seen since. He's a horse that has been entered in repeated races by Todd Pletcher this year and keeps scratching out of them for one reason or another, ends up here now making his 2024 debut. But I'll be honest, Brad Cox's Highland Falls just looks like a monster for this barn. And it looks really tough to get around in this spot at 6-5 in the morning line. Maybe Tapit Trice comes back even better as a 4-year-old. I don't know. But at 2-1 and rather short price, I'd rather go with a short price that is in good form right now than a short price that I'm taking a little bit of a risk on. So Highland Falls, I just felt like was the obvious choice in this race.
Well, he has the recency, and I think a real key with him is he has the kick, too. He's got a little bit of a kick. And Tapit Trice is more of a grinding mover who doesn't really kick. He just sort of goes at that same steady pace. And I feel that's part of probably the reason why Todd Pletcher isn't concerned probably with running this horse 9 furlongs off a long layoff, or maybe some would, because he'll go all day. That won't be a problem for him. But I think Highland Falls is a little more of a kick, and especially with the recency. Todd Pletcher, yes, fantastic off of layoffs. You don't have to worry about fitness, but Highland Falls does have that race experience nonetheless, and I think he has a better kick, and I think he has a better kick than all the rest in here. So, yeah, you're not going to get a good price on Highland Falls, but if you think he's going to win, you maybe consider singling, maybe not, but I think he's going to be awfully tough in this race if he runs his best.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he has that versatility. He sits that traditional mid-pack trip, his tracking trip, which is so successful, going 2 turns on the dirt. And you're right about Tapit Trice, a horse that can run all day, but he is not, or at least he wasn't. Obviously, we'll see what he was like when he comes back as a 4. He is not the most athletic horse, though. He is a little, I don't want to say clumsy, but he's lumbering, I suppose, would be kind of the best way to say it. And so that far outside post, I don't love a lot of things about this potential trip for him. And I'd rather see him run one off the bench and see kind of what we have in a 4-year-old rather than taking a shot. Speaking of taking a shot, I went to a horse I've been a big fan of for a while, Matt Kuchar, who, was a horse that was pretty well thought of early on in his career and was, running some graded stakes company for Todd Pletcher. And, Rudy Brissett had this horse running in stakes races and running well down at Oaklawn Park and Churchill Downs. And then it just felt like the form went away for a while. And, it started in, around this time last year. Horse bounces around to Jamie Ness's barn, then ends up with Rudy Rodriguez. And Rudy really lets this horse take some time off from summer 2023 till later winter in 2024. This horse comes back and has become a little bit of its former self and has been running those high 80, low 90 buyer speed figures. Probably not good enough to win here, but, finished 5th last time out in the grade 2 Suburban and, faded a little bit late, but has some versatility and has a couple of wins against high-level optional claimers up here in New York. Again, as a value play, maybe underneath the favorite, I could see this horse making a little bit of a run. You went to a horse that my good friend Sarah El Badwi always goes back to. It feels like she really likes this horse a lot, and that's Stage Raider.
The half-sibling to Good Magic, who, of course, was the winner of the 2018 Haskell. I don't know if he's a half sibling or a full sibling. I forgot who Good Magic is by, but nonetheless, he's a sibling. This horse had really good form in the summertime of last year, right around now, in fact. And then he was really sour. I don't know what happened. He ran 3 bad races in a row. They gave him time, came back off the layoff in the Salvador Mile, sat off the pace, and finished 4th behind Bright Future, who is obviously a very nice grade 1 winner from the Todd Pletcher barn, who coincidentally was also coming off a layoff. Bright Future's in a different league than Stage Raider. And second start off the break here, he showed that spark first start off the break. So maybe he's got another move forward in him and he can get up for an underneath placing at the very least. He'll need to run really, really top notch to beat the best in here, especially Highland Falls. He's going to have to run maybe the race of his life to actually beat Highland Falls if he comes with his best. But I still feel Stage Raider is an interesting candidate, given that not only does he have the pedigree, but we've seen the class from him before. And last time out, I like that he rebounded with a better than looked effort, making a nice run down the lane, going a mile. He's getting back to a 1 1/8, and he's run some very good races going a little bit farther at a 1 1/8. So I think going an extra furlong is only going to be beneficial to him as well.
Yeah, definitely provides some good value, I think, underneath in this spot. And a horse that, you're right, has some races to run back to. So definitely a lot to like there with Stage Raider in this race. Well, let's move on to race number 11 on the card, and that is the United Nations Grade 2 for 3-year-old and up, going 1 3/8 miles on the turf. And this is a lot like the Matchmaker. I mean, this feels like a race where you could go any number of directions. A really intriguing race. I went to a couple of horses who ran. We saw run actually last time out on that Haskell preview day in the Eatontown. You went to a horse that finally got back in the win column last time out in the number 10 Web Slinger. This is one who has an incredible kick and can really come from the back. And it looks like there's going to be a little bit of pace in this race, so should get the setup. But what drew you to the number 10 in this one?
It's one of these races where you have a pick now, and who knows, you wake up Saturday morning and you go, wait, maybe I should go to this one over here. Maybe I need to rethink this. This is a fantastic edition of the UN. I picked Web Slinger because I think you will get the right setup. You've got Get Smoking in here and also the long shot So High, who are expected to be forward, and I think that's going to help him. He's going to have some speed to run into. I think he's got a real nice kick. I thought his 2-back effort behind Program Trading was a very solid effort, maybe a little bit of a shorter distance than he prefers. And then last time out going longer at this distance, he had to grind it out, but he got the win. and ran into decent to moderate fractions. And I think the pace will be swift here because So High and Get Smoking both want to be forward. So I think Web Slinger, with that confidence booster in mind, has a real shot to win this race against a very good field, but not an impossible field either. I think it's a very evenly matched field, and I think he stacks up with as good as any of them. I also like that Luis Saez is aboard because this horse, I wouldn't call him like a tap it trice, but he's certainly one that needs an aggressive rider, needs an aggressive ride towards the end of the race. You got to start pumping on him early. So I think Web Slinger is a horse that's really going to fit Luis well and vice versa. And I'm hoping the pace is there for him. If we don't get the type of pace, I like others, but here's hoping that we get a pace for him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the type of horse too that he seems to find trouble sometimes, but part of that is because I feel like he doesn't get moving until late. And I agree with you. Louis is a type of rider who's going to get after him a little bit earlier and maybe get him in a little bit of a better position, because there were 4 or 5 races in a row where I kept saying the same thing about Web Slinger, which was he ran the best race but didn't win. And it was just one of those where it's like, this is a really talented horse, but just isn't getting the job done. And finally was able to get the job done last time out in the Charlie Wooden. I just think, again, you're right about, I think Louis fits this horse well in terms of getting after him a little bit. Of course, we should mention Jose Ortiz, who rode him last time out, is, of course, on Farbridge, who is very talented as well in his own right and would be a very legitimate top selection for people. I'm a little wary of that far outside number 12 post for Farbridge. That's a lot to overcome on any track, especially one going 1 3/8. So just something to worry about there. I went to a horse that, I'll be honest, I was not expecting to run well last time out, and I thought ran a better race than I thought he was going to run, which is Tawny Port. And this is one who, he's a cool horse in that he was, he ran in the Kentucky Derby, he won the Ohio Derby, he won the Lexington, he was a graded stakes winner on the dirt, and then switches barns from Brad Cox, goes over to Christophe Clement, becomes a turf horse, is a stakes winning turf horse, is grade 2 placed multiple times, and nearly won the Monmouth last time out against Fort Washington and Running Bee in that thrilling finish, which was a dead heat. And, gets Flavian Pratt up on the mount now, has that kind of tactical running style to maybe sit second, third, fourth in this race. And, probably third, fourth, because I agree with you, Smoking Hottie and Too High, So High are going to go out there in the front, or Get Smoking, I should say, and So High are going to get out there up front. But, this is one just continues to run a little bit better. I think 1 3/8 might be the right distance. And I just think, with Flavian aboard, I wanted to take a shot there. You went to a horse that, for your value play at 10-1, Emmanuel, who's kind of has a similar MO to Tawny Port in that this was a horse that was on the Derby Trail and then switched over to the turf and has become a really nice turf horse.
I was thinking about Tawny Port before we go to Emmanuel. I just want to let you know that I was thinking about him. And he moved a little early last time between horses, and I think it might have cost him. He's a very nice horse. And I also agree that the outside post for Farbridge, I know Web Slingers isn't much better, but that's not going to be easy. But I think Jose Ortiz's agent made the right choice. I mean, Farbridge probably is the better distance horse than Web Slinger, but sometimes the best horse doesn't always win. Sometimes the best trip or on their best day. But anyway, I did pick Emmanuel as my value play. He's getting out-kicked in some of these mile races. It's amazing how certain horses sort of change their running styles over time or change their preferences. And I know you could see this as maybe a last-ditch effort to, hey, we're not seeing the old Emmanuel that we saw, so let's stretch him out and see if he likes more distance. He's got the pedigree for it. But I happen to believe this horse will like going longer. I think he's got much better post positions than either of our top picks or the most likely favorite at post time. I think Farbridge, even with the poor post of 12. And I think Emmanuel is going to enjoy this mile 3/8. So I'm interested to see if he's going to take to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think he's got decent speed. And you'd figure in this race, he's probably going to be a little bit closer to the pace than he has been the last few times out. Rather than sitting 5th, 6th, 7th, he's going to be sitting kind of 3rd or 4th. And I agree with you. I think this is kind of maybe what this horse wants to do, go a little bit longer now on the turf. I ultimately went to the horse that won the Monmouth last time out in a dead heat with Fort Washington, who's also in this race. Both he and Running Bee are the same price on the morning line, 8-1. This is one of the various Chad Brown horses in this race. And this is one, just a kind of a sneaky horse that honestly, if you look at this horse's efforts since coming back from that year-long layoff, and you draw a line through those efforts over kind of an off or a wet or softer track, it's been incredibly consistent. And it may not be good enough to win this spot, but he's been running 95s, 96s kind of at different courses and, while stretching out a little bit last time. And I just think this is a horse that at 8-1 presents a little bit of value and should be sitting again, that kind of mid-pack trip, may not have quite as much work to do as a horse like Web Slinger potentially coming for home. So I just thought, maybe just trips out a little bit. And certainly we saw that, like I said, that thrilling finish in the Monmouth last time out, which was just really something else to see. I thought I lost it, and because I had Running Bee in that race, and then I turned around and my buddy goes, "Oh, you got the winner," and I go, "I didn't realize that." So that was a heck of a race, and
could have been one of the best races of the meet at Monmouth, at least. Really good race.
Absolutely. Well, let's head on to the headliner for this race on the card, and that is, of course, the Grade 1 Haskell for 3-year-old, going 1.125 miles on the dirt. And Matt, this is a interesting race in that I cannot remember a Grade 1 race, and we're recording this just to kind of draw the curtain back a little bit. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon, late in the day. I don't know who's going to run in the Haskell on Saturday. I know who's drawn into the Haskell on Saturday, but I don't know who's actually going to be there in the starting gate when the gates open. Is Fierceness going to be there? Is Dornick going to be there? There are question marks around both of those horses. Danny Gargan was not pleased with the inside post draw for Dornick. Fierceness has been a horse that there's been a lot of discussion about, well, the only reason he was entered was in case something happened to Mind Frame, who was also owned by Mike Rapoli and trained by Todd Pletcher. And, but now Mike Rapoli, I should say, has come out today, said both horses are shipping to Monmouth. Might be a Saturday morning decision. I don't know what to think. We ultimately both landed on the same horse, though, at the end of the day, which was Mind Frame, your 9-5 morning line favorite, who's coming out of an incredibly impressive effort, finishing second in the Belmont Stakes. But Matt, since this is the feature race, I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about Mind Frame.
Obviously a very talented horse, lightly raced. And with that in mind, there's a lot of reason to believe that this horse can improve. He can take another step forward. He's done it every single start he's running. Even though he didn't win last time, that was a step forward. When you've got just 2 races under your belt, then you got to go 1.25 miles against much more seasoned horses and almost winning the darn thing. Yeah, he drifted out down the lane under the left-handed encouragement there, but a little bit green. And he had never been in that scenario before. As we mentioned earlier in the show, he's a horse that his first 2 races, he was just so much superior to the competition. Turning for home, he was clear. He didn't really have to deal with adversity. And this time around in the Belmont, he had to run down a horse. Maybe didn't know quite what to do. Maybe he had never been asked for that much before. Didn't know quite what to do. But he's a good horse. And he's just got the perfect running style for horses, which is tactical speed. Horses that have speed, they can go to the lead, they can sit off. He's so speedy, or at least he's got enough tactical speed, I should change that to say, that he will be prominent in any of his races, regardless of who's in it, because he just has that natural speed. He's just a naturally talented horse and has a quick, high cruising speed. I think he'll put himself in a good spot. I think he's going to be really ready for this. I think there's another step forward for him to take, and I think he's going to take it. At a price? No, he's not going to be a price. He'll probably go out over Dornock, but I like him in this race. I think the whole Dornock controversy with I don't like the rail because in the Derby he didn't get a good trip, I think that's going to end up turning into a whole bunch of nothing. I think this horse will be shipping. I saw the owner at the press conference, Vito, and they sounded excited to run. And in the daily racing form, actually, they were noting about how Gargan says, we'll get him running out of there. And he seems a little more calmed down. That was immediately after the post position draw that we talked to him, actually, where he was quoted as saying, I don't really like the rail draw, but I think it'll be fine for him. That said, I'm going to pick Mindframe to run him down this time.
Yeah, I think listen, this is very different from the Kentucky Derby in that you don't have 19 horses crashing down on you from that inside rail. And I actually think the rail is not bad for Dornick. If he gets out, I mean, it's the shortest way around the track, as we saw many times under one of my favorite jockeys, Calvin Burrell, who got the nickname Bo Rail because he would just go straight to the rail. And, that's the easiest way to get to the winner's circle. So I don't mind it there. It is interesting, though, because I think after that Belmont Stakes, I had a friend of mine I was speaking with about this, and a fellow handicapper, who said that's the last time Mindframe is going to lose to Dornick. And I thought, yeah, that probably seems right. That, to your point, Mindframe's got another step forward. And as good as Dornick is, he ran a heck of a race at Belmont Stakes, and he's been training very, very well for Danny leading up to this. But it just feels like Mindframe's got another gear that he might be able to get to. And he's a horse that, I'll be very honest, I was dead set against in that Belmont Stakes. I thought that it was too much of a class test. I didn't like the post position. I thought, he kind of beat up against horses that were not as good as him. And I thought, the margin of victory was maybe overblown in those. And, but he proved me wrong by running an absolutely huge race that day for second. My value play in this one, listen, we're talking about races running in New Jersey. I got to go with the New Jersey bred, right? So I got to go with C Streak as a value play here. The number 8 at 20-1 for Eddie Owens Jr. Matt, you obviously called the race for the Pegasus Stakes. One of the more bizarre races, I think, that we saw that day, in that they stacked 5 wide around the track around both turns, and none of the horses were willing to give in an inch. And C Streak got the worst of it because he was on the far outside. He was that 5th wide position. Obviously draws wide again, but you would imagine the dynamics might be a little bit different this time around. The horse won the Long Branch by over 7 lengths. Clearly can handle 2 turns for trainer Eddie Owens Jr. Horse has been training well leading up to this, maybe growing, filling out a little bit more as he's getting older. So at 20-1, he's going to be in my trifectas. I'm not going to pick him to win upset the race, but he'll be deeper in my verticals. You went to a horse that I think is a huge X factor in this race because we've not seen him since that Arkansas Derby, and that is Brad Cox's Timberlake, who incredibly talented and is already a Grade 1 winner in his own right, winning the Champagne Stakes last year.
Really nice horse. I got to know him a little bit at Oaklawn Park, and his Rebel win I thought was impressive. Brad Cox did not have him 100% cranked for the Rebel. He was probably 85, 90% because he wanted to have him in peak form if he can get him to the Kentucky Derby. In the Arkansas Derby, he didn't get a good trip, moved way too early on the inside, and maybe he didn't need to. Got a little bit tired. Originally, they had said, well, we'll see if he wants to go this far. I sort of looked at it as I'm sure he will be able to go this far. He just didn't get a great trip. And I was willing to be forgiving of that effort. Come to find out something happened because he took 3.5 months off. So he's come back now, and he's in this race. And Brad Cox is saying he was training as good as he ever has. And I just feel like Windstar, I know they like to make stallions, and the Haskell is a stallion-making race, but they're not going to throw him to the wolves if they don't think he's doing well, at the very least. He should get a good stocking trip. Brad, very good off of layoffs. He'll have this horse fit. It won't be easy going a mile and an eighth off the layoff, especially against, the top 2 Belmont finishers. That's not going to be easy.
Right.
But I figure at 8-1, if he can stay up there, even if you like Mindframe or even Dornock, and maybe you play him underneath an exacta, it won't pay too shabby. So Timberlake, I would take a shot with him. But I like your value play as well, just your rationale. He's probably not good enough to win, but talk about a horrid trip he had last time out. And he was favored in the Pegasus over Tuscan Sky.
Yeah.
So if you like Tuscan Sky and you think C Streak had an excuse, and he probably did, 20-1, maybe, you never know.
Yeah, no, you'll get 20-1 or higher on him come Saturday afternoon. That's for sure. And Timberlake. You bring up the great point about Windstar. One of the reasons I don't think this is just the ownership groups kind of pushing to run him back is, as I mentioned, he's got a Grade 1 win already. He's got the Grade 2 Rebel. he's got a good resume already. So if he were to just run and kind of slowly come back into form as a 3-year-old later this year, that would have been fine. But I agree with you. Brad Cox does not place horses in Grade 1 races unless they're looking really good. And he's not just going to place Timberlake in this race just for no reason at all. So completely agree. He's a big X factor in a horse I was a big fan of. So, and I knew it's funny because I got to talk to Crystal yesterday a little bit about this race, and now you today, and both of you had an opportunity to see him up close and personal at Oaklawn. And, he also reminds me a little bit, just because of his temperament, a little bit of a horse like Cyberknife, who, of course, won this race 2 years ago for Brad Cox and Florent Giroux. He's a little bit high strung. He's a little hot, a little bit of hot of a horse. And Cyberknife was a little bit the same way. So that was a horse that, of course, upset Jack Christopher and Taba in the Haskell a few years back. Well, there's still 2 more races left. After the big crescendo, this is something my friends who don't follow horse racing very much, they're always amazed by the fact that after the big race, there's still other races to be run. And they're like, so after the Super Bowl, there's another couple of races? I go, yeah, there's still a couple more races. So we'll kick things off here in the late daily double, and race 13, $50,000 allowance for 3-year-old and up, going a mile on the turf. This was one, again, I think you could go a few different directions here. Your top pick has some European background, Guildenstern, 4-1. Talk to me a little bit about this one.
Guildenstern started the career in Europe, ran a couple of good races, useful races, a couple of poor ones. Moved here, first time out to the Joe Orsino barn. This runner broke slowly, was a little bit tardy out of the gate. You see that a lot with the Europeans as well.
Yeah, you do.
Not quite as great at braking as maybe the Americans are, based on their training methods and all that stuff. But I thought he put in a respectable rally down the lane off the layoff, and I love when horses do something for a second time. Second-time starters, second-time routing in their career, second off a layoff, even second-time U.S. I like these angles. I think horses have a step forward in them, and I think he does as well. Again, I think it was a sneaky good run he put in last time out after not breaking too well, still made up good ground down the lane. And then my value play, I'll just add that one on as well, Mickey Lele. Shug McGahee does not win often first out. And even though I don't think this horse beat the strongest main special weight group at Tampa, you look back and the horses in that race haven't come back to be superstars by any means, but it just shows that this horse had a little bit of raw ability, and he's taken another layoff here. We last saw him, his only start was on December 2nd. So there's things going against him. He's facing winners for the first time here, but I figure at 6-1, I think one of the 4 or 5 top choices probably will win, but between them, they're pretty evenly matched. So that's sort of how I read this race. And with a new shooter on the scene at this level, worth a look at 6-1.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with your analysis more. And, it was so interesting because I'd handicapped this earlier today, and then you sent me over your picks, and I was so happy you had picked these 2 horses because these were the other 2 horses that I had in my top 4. So I thought, oh, this is perfect because these are the horses that I also kind of saw as being major players in this particular race. I ultimately landed on the number 2, Ready to Fly, as my top choice. The horse maybe does like to finish second a little bit too much. Obviously, we've seen 3 straight seconds the last 3 times out, but does seem to be improving and is continuing to run really strong efforts. Those last 4 races have all been really strong, going back to this winner down at Tampa Bay Downs, and does have a win against kind of N1X Allowance Company down there, and is coming up here. And again, as a nice kind of versatile running style, can kind of sit mid-pack. And, Patrick McBurney, the trainer, has obviously a lot of local experience, and you got leading rider Paco Lopez up on the mount. So I went there as my top choice. And then for my value play, I went to a horse that's just gotten a lot of bad luck to some extent. And this is the 3rd straight time that Last Call has drawn the rail. And for better or worse, that's kind of what this horse has continued to get. And the horse has won off the rail 2 back against much lesser companies, 16,000 claimers. Last time out was a little slow, obviously got shuffled all the way to the back, being on the inside rail, made up a ton of ground late, and really ran a good race. Now goes back and gets the jockey that ran this horse 2 back when he won. And I just think, again, you draw the inside rail, is going to have to get away a little bit more cleanly to secure more of a mid-pack trip. But since switching over to the grass, two back, has run a couple of nice races. And I don't know, 6-1 has a little bit of upside value. So ultimately landed there for a value play at 6-1. Well, let's close things out, Matt. We're going to almost do this in an hour, which is pretty darn good. Race number 14, $20,000 optional claimer going 6 furlongs for 3-year-old filly and mares on the dirt. And we both landed on the same top pick, but I got to explain myself because I ended up on, now I say Floge. Is that the correct pronunciation? You're the one who calls it.
So the correct pronunciation is Flug, actually.
Flug. Okay.
Yeah.
So Flug. So the first time I saw this horse run was a couple of races back when I was helping my mom recover from knee replacement surgery. We were down I was down in her place in Virginia. She had just gotten the internet. That should tell you where she lives in Virginia because it's in the middle of nowhere. And the first thing she wanted to do was fire up America's Day at the Races. So we watched America's Day at the Races. The very first race we turned on, here comes this horse running and gets the win. So when I saw this horse running again, I go, well, I got to pick this horse. But this horse is going to, I think, get the setup too. There's a ton of speed in this race, and I think this horse is just going to get the perfect trip, kind of sitting just off of that. So I went with there as my top pick, and you went to that horse as well, obviously, as your top selection. Talk to me a little bit about this one because you've obviously been able to see this horse up close and personal the last couple of times.
She's not much to look at. No offense to her. No offense, Flug. I'm glad Flug probably isn't watching this, but she is just one of these blue collar fillies that all of a sudden has started to get confident and get good. And we see this with the fillies and mares. You know, they start winning and they start getting confident, and now we've got 4 in a row. She was a claiming horse just a few starts ago. She's going to be really fit. My favorite angle in racing is cut back from route to sprint. I think horses are uber fit when they do that, and she is doing that here. I thought her last race was very good routing. She'd never gone 2 turns before, and she won anyway. But the key there, you mentioned it, there's a lot of speed in this race, and she's going to be sitting off of it. She's going to get the right trip, and she's going better than ever, as I mentioned. So there are a lot of reasons, I think, to like Flug. She's not the class of the race, and it remains to be seen whether she has the class to beat this field. But the way she's been running, her form, the setup, at all points, if she can stay at 6-1, pretty decent bet, I think, there.
I think so too. We should mention Fancy Azteca, the number 9, is your favorite, your morning line favorite. That's one. I just don't know if I believe that last buyer speed figure, which was an 86 and completely anomalous from what this horse typically runs. And I would imagine there's going to be a little bit of a regression considering the previous 3 races, the horse ran a 36, a 52, and a 68. Now, you could say she's trending in the right direction, sure, but that's 68 to 86. That's a heck of a jump in one race. And I would imagine we see a little bit of a backup here in this spot. Also facing claiming competition. And while the claiming tag was for 40, still facing horses that are protected is always a little bit of a different element there. So willing to play against that one. And again, that's one who's going to be up on the lead as well, along with what feels like about 3/4 of the field, all wanting to try to get to the front. You went to a horse, Abby the Bulldog, at 10-1. I went to number 4, Simple Souvenir. I'll just very quickly talk about my logic with the 4 before I turn it over to you. Really a horse that, again, I think is stepping up a little bit, is going to be facing a little bit tougher. Won, though, last time out and can come from off the pace. It was kind of the same thing. I was just looking for horses who don't need the lead, and that's just kind of where I landed on a horse that's a really big price. Obviously, he's going to have a big class test here at 15-1, but I thought, maybe worth a shot. Maybe you're just running up into something, for the trifecta or superfecta deeper in your tickets. You went to Abby the Bulldog for your final value play on the card. Talk to me about this one a little bit.
She's a deep closer, so she's at the mercy of the pace, and that's really the key. A lot of speed in this race, so I'm thinking that maybe she'll get the right trip. Is she fast enough? It doesn't look like it on paper, but if the pace just totally falls apart, then she might be able to pick up pieces. And I thought her last race, excuse me, I thought her last race was actually better than looked. She didn't get a pace to run at all, and she still almost won, and she didn't break well either. She sort of got jammed between horses at the steady, and she's one that comes from far off the pace anyway, but I just thought that last run was much better than looked. I thought that two-back effort where she got a little bit of a pace, she lost a lot of ground in the far turn and turning for home, and that cost her. Her three-back effort, she ran poorly. That was on a wet surface, so cross it out. We're not going to have that. So I just think with the pace ahead of her, I don't know if she can win. I would use her on tickets just because she is a good price, and she will be a good price come post time, even if I don't think she's the best or the classiest runner in the race. I don't even know if I have that much confidence that she would win this race, but at the price, if I was spreading in this race, I'd probably use her. In fact, if I used a few, I'd use her. So she's the pick for me here. She just needs the right setup, even though she's not the classiest runner in the race, but she could very well get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it in a couple of other races. It's not always about the best horse in the race. It's about the horse that gets the best trip and the best setup, and absolutely could be one of those. Matt, thank you so much for going through all of these races with me. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday because I'll be down there at Monmouth Park and enjoying all of the races. But let the good folks know what else is going on at Monmouth Park. It's not just Haskell Day. You got a lot going on, I'm sure, in the upcoming days as well, and a lot of still great racing to come this summer.
Yeah, so we don't end until in September. So we've got plenty of good racing after the Haskell. But Haskell Eve, that'll be tomorrow. And if you're watching this on Friday today, our feature race features the very talented Grade 1 winner, Bookham Dano, who won on Belmont Day. Looking forward to seeing him. And it was announced today, will be running in that race. He's not scratching. Little Knee, an undefeated horse for the Eddie Owens Jr. barn, of course, the trainer of C Street for the same ownership group, Holly Crest Farm. Very nice horse will be battling him. So that'll be a fun feature. 9 races on Friday. First post will be 2 o'clock. Then, of course, Haskell Day, noon. We've got 2 guaranteed pools. In the pick 4, $500,000 is guaranteed. That's races 9 through 12. And then races, let's see, that'd be 10 through 14 would be the last 5 races. There's a $250,000 guaranteed late pick 5. And then on Sunday, our card just came out, 10 races with first post at $12.50 on Sunday. So a lot of good racing this weekend at Monmouth, including our big week end and big Saturday, Haskell Day. We're expecting probably 30 to 35,000 people on site Saturday. So it's going to be rocking for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you if you've never been to Monmouth Park, one of my favorite places to be. I have to say, make sure you cross it off your bucket list if you're a horse racing fan. Always enjoy going to the track. Get to see the sand sculptures when you walk in. The picnic area is fantastic. The vibes are great. It's very relaxed, very fun, very family friendly. So definitely make sure to check it out and make sure to play on NYRA Bets as you're playing the NYRA Bets Haskell, of course. So Matt, thank you again so much for joining me. Really appreciate your time. Thank you all for watching this video. Make sure to press that like button and subscribe to the new NYRA Bets YouTube channel. For Matt Dinerman, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.